Hey everyone, it's TK Friday again. Today it's going to be a full edit. The title of this episode is Breaking Waves. This is an image by Diehr. Stay tuned. Hello everyone and welcome to the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly on this TK Friday. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today it's an image by Diehr. Thank you, Ray, for the use of your image. You'll be able to download the image as well as the PDF notes. This is the original right here, as you can see. And then we have the final result after the edit, and these are the layers we'll be using. But you're going to have the PDF notes, and you can follow along with me. It's a great way of learning. By the way, if you don't yet own the TK8 plugin for Photoshop, just click on my affiliate link. It's right below in the description. Click on that link. It'll take you to the TK web store. You could purchase training videos, the TK8 plugin for Photoshop. And if you use my promo code DK15, you'll save 15% off your entire purchase. You're supporting the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly when you do that. And for that, I thank you. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Now, this is the original RAW file right out of Ray's camera. I started out using a linear profile for a Canon EOS 5D Mark IV, which is the camera Ray used on this image, and I made some basic adjustments. Basically, I hit the auto setting and tweaked some of these adjustments here. Under lens corrections, I have removed chromatic aberration and enabled profile corrections, but just some really basic adjustments, and already it looks really good. But we're not going to stop here. We're going to send this image into Photoshop and open up that TK8 plugin for Photoshop, and let's see what we can do to make this image even better. Here we are inside of Photoshop. This image had a bit of noise, and I needed to remove it, so I used Topaz Denoise AI to remove it. When I got the image back, I had a little bit of a halo issue. I went ahead and zoomed way into 500% so I could show you this halo issue. Right now, you don't see it. Let me disable this mask by clicking this X. Now you can see that halo all around the edges here. It's not real bad, but it was bothering me, and I don't like it. I used this icon here. I clicked on it, made myself an edge mask. If you want to see how to make an edge mask to get rid of halos, let me know in the comments section below, and I'll make a video on that. And let's see the final result. Let me go ahead and enable this mask back on. And you see how it's totally removed that halo. And here's what the mask looks like. If I click this double arrow icon, you can see there's my edge mask. So TK8 really does a great job at making edge masks. When you download the image, the noise will be removed. I'm going to go ahead and flatten this by clicking this flatten button. Your image will look just like this, just with the background layer. Well, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I always like to do is come to the luminosity mask button, give it a click, add a midtones 3 luminosity mask, and that protects my shadows and highlights from clipping. And let's go ahead and now put that to a color grading tool and make some adjustments here. I'm going to start out with shadows, click on the shadow block, and just deepen up the shadows just a little wee bit, something like that. Let's go to midtones. Let's open up the midtones. Not too much because I want to keep this misty look to it. It looks kind of like stormy out, but check the size of that breaking wave. It's huge, man. That's scary looking. And then I just want to go to highlights and just ease off on the highlights just a little bit. Make sure I have good detail in those highlights. I want to add a bit of a blue color grade into the shadows. Let's click on the shadow block again. Let's cool these shadows down just a little wee bit. Yeah, I think that looks good. Let's take a look at the before and after. Here's the before, and here is the after. Yeah, I think we're off to a good start. I'll tell you, Ray had a really good exposure on this image. Now, when I determine what to do next, I really just study my image and think, what really sticks out for me? And to me, the sky looks a little bit too light for the scene. I just want to darken it up a bit. I'll use the combo panel and use the sky selection button. Click on that. That's going to select the sky. And now the sky is selected. Then we can come up and let's exile this color grading tool. And let's click on my channels and click on the active selection to make it active. I'm going to use a mask calculator. I love the mask calculator, and I know a lot of you out there love it. Let me know in the comments section below if you really enjoy the mask calculator as much as I do. So click on the mask calculator. We're going to do an intersection, so let's click on the X, and then we'll X out of here. And next, I'll click the luminosity mask icon. And just like I did for my opening balance and contrast adjustment, I don't know if I mentioned that, but that first adjustment is always for balance and contrast. I'm going to click on the mid 3 luminosity mask, and we're going to click equals, and that'll make the calculation. Now, not much happens here, and I could have probably not even have used mids 3, but I like to do what I feel I get a little bit better adjustment. And then what I'll do is I'll put this to a color grading tool, and all I'll need here is a midtone adjustment. So click on the gray block for midtones, and let's just darken up the sky. Just a little bit like that. I think it gives it more of that stormy look. Here's the before, and now here's the after. The next thing that catches my attention are these evergreen trees back here, these pine trees. I'd like to have them a little bit lighter, not much, and a little bit more saturation. You don't see a lot of the green, so I like to bring the green up a little bit, and I believe the color grading tool is perfect for this, along with a color mask. I'll click the X to get rid of the color grading tool so we can see the multi-mask panel. I'll click on this icon so I can create a color mask, and I just need to find some green tone in here, like right here, and click OK. And as you can see, the selection is really dark, but don't worry, because I have this handy dandy brightness slider that I could drag to the right, like the whole way over basically, and it really lightens that area up. But I can go further here, and that is get this levels adjustment. And then I'll click on the highlight slider and start to drag it way over into the left to really lighten that area up. And then I think I'll take the mid-tone slider and drag it to the left a little bit just to lighten it up even more, something like that. And then I'll get the lasso tool. You can type L, that's a shortcut for the lasso tool. And I know that the area is right in here. I'm just going to draw a selection right around here. I missed this little area right here, so I'll hold my shift key down and just add that to the selection, just like so. And now we're going to click the mask icon. And I don't need any feathering here, so I'm just going to go ahead and click cancel, and I've selected that area. And now I'm going to output this to a color grading tool. And then simply, I'm going to go with midtones again, grab the midtone block, just click on it. I'll lighten it up a bit, see it's lighter. And let's just shift the color grade a little yellow-green, like right here. See that? Isn't that nice? It just brings up a bit of saturation in here. And it does a really good job. Now here is the before, and now here is the after. Now there's a little bit of green that got on these sticks, so what I'm going to do is, let's just zoom in a little bit here. And make sure you click on the mask itself and with a black brush. So click on the black brush, and I'll make my brush smaller, pretty small, at 100% opacity. And I could just paint off any green that's got on these fence posts here, just like that. No big deal. We can take care of this little stuff very simply, very easily, just like that. Okay, and there we go. Here again is the before and the after, and I think that really helps. I'm continuing to study this image, and the next thing I see, these darker areas in the water here, I'd like to bring out a little bit of a seafoam green color to them and darken them up just a little bit. And to do that, again, the color grading tool. I do love the color grading tool, as you know if you watch my TK Friday videos. Let's get a new color grading tool there. So if we click on this plus, we'll add a color grading tool there. And what I want to do is study this area here. The rest of the image is going to look really ugly for a second here, but don't worry about that. First off, I want to look at the shadow areas and really darken them. I'm going to use just the midtones. So click on the midtone block and let's darken up the shadow areas. Maybe something right around there. And now I'm looking for that seafoam green color, a little bit of cyan and green. Maybe somewhere in that area right there. And maybe a little bit darker. Maybe like that. We'll hide this adjustment. Click on this black icon. It'll put a black mask on that layer to hide it. Let's get the color grading tool out of the way by clicking the X. It doesn't change the adjustment. It just gets it out of the way because we need the multi-mask panel. Now I want to use a zone mask to select some of these darker tones down here. So let's click on the zone mask icon, and I'm going to go with one of these really dark tones like right in here and click OK. and see what kind of selection we get. Yeah, we get a nice selection, but let's tighten it up. Click this circle and drag it into the left to really tighten that up, something like that. Okay, and we can lighten it up as well. Maybe like around there. And then we could take the levels adjustment, click on the levels adjustment, and I'm going to drag this over to the left just to really lighten that up. If you go too far, you'll crush the detail. So you don't want to go too far, but I'm thinking maybe right about here should be good. And now we need to output this. So I'm going to output it to a black mask with a white brush, painting through a selection. So click this icon right here. Right now my brush is at 100% opacity. That's too much. I'm going to change it to about 40%. I'm going to type my 4 key and let's just paint over here. I'm not lifting my brush. I'm painting over all this area in here and over in here as well. And that's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to paint over in here. Get this area. I think I'll lifted my brush. I'm painting it one more time. I think I'll paint over this whole area one more time and over in here. Let's take a look at the before. So I'm going to shut this layer off. There's the before, and here is the after. I think I'll get this area here one more time, right in here. I think that's going to look good. And over here, I'm going to grab this once, twice. I'm lifting my brush, and that just adds that little bit of color. But this image doesn't have a whole ton of color in it, but every little bit of color we can eke out of it, I think it's going to help it. On this same layer, you see back here the ocean back in this area and right here. I just want to add a little bit of that color back in there, that color grade. So I'm going to grab my object selection tool and just make a selection right around here like this. See what it selects. Yeah, it selects it really well. Hold my shift key down to add this section in here. Let's just go like this and see if we can get a decent selection. Yeah, and that looks pretty good. Now we can see our marching ants. I want to hide the marching ants so they don't get in my way. So click this button on the CX or combo panel and that'll hide your marching ants. The selection's still there. You can see by the selection indicator. I'm going to grab my white brush. So I'm going to click on my white brush. I'm painting right on this mask. It's still selected here. I'm going to change my opacity to 10% and just paint 10% right across there, okay? And over in this area, I'm going to change it to 5%. I'm going to go 0.5. That'll change this to 5%, and I'm just going to paint over this one time. Now, just look back in this area. Here's the before, and here's the after. And that just adds that same little bit of a color grade back in there, and that helps. Now, let's take a look at our mask here by clicking this double arrow icon. And there you can see that little bit back in there and over here and then down here at the bottom and over here. So that's that. What's next? I want to lighten up my midtones and pop a little bit of contrast in them. And to do that, what I'll do is grab a luminosity mask. Now you can see I still have a selection, but as soon as I click on the luminosity mask icon, that selection goes away. We don't see the selection indicator anymore. And what I want to do is get a mids 1, because remember, I want to lighten up the midtones. I'm going to output it to a curves adjustment layer. So we'll click this icon for a curves. I'm going to put it in the screen blend mode. So I'm going to click this button right here to change it to the screen blend mode. And you can see my midtones lighten up, and I like that. But now with the curve itself, I'm going to use a preset. Right now it's set to default, which is just the linear straight line. So click the drop down and let's click on strong contrast. And you see that we had a nice strong contrast just to the midtones, which is really cool. So here's the before and here's the after. So I've lightened the midtones and popped a little bit of contrast in there. Let's add a gradient to the top of the image in the sky area to close off the top part of the image. And to do that, I'm going to grab a curves adjustment layer. Change it to the multiply blend mode. Now, before I do that, I always like to put a black mask on there because if I change it to the multiply blend mode, you see the entire image gets dark. I just put the black mask on there first so I don't have to see it go dark because I know it's going to go dark. That's why I do that first. Next, I'll grab my gradient tool, which is right here. So I'm going to click on that and make sure you have your white swatch on the top. Hold your shift key down just to constrain this gradient to keep it straight, keep it level. So I'm going to click here and drag down to maybe right about here and see how that just closes that off. But that's way too dark. So I'm going to take the opacity and pull it back to maybe right around 34. Here's the before and here's the after, but it closes it off nicely. Now it's encroaching into this wave, and I don't want that. So how can we take care of that? Well, I have an interesting way of doing it. We're going to keep this layer mask active. What I want to do is select the foreground. So to do that, I'll select the sky. Well, that seems backwards, right? But let's click on this icon to select the sky. Now we have our sky selected. Now it's encroaching into this wave. So let's grab our object selection tool. Click and hold your Option key down on a Mac, your Alt key on Windows, and we'll drag around this wave to subtract that from the sky selection like that. And it's missed this little area here, so I'll hold the Alt or Option key down and grab this area right in here. And so now that's pretty good. I didn't think that would be an issue anyway, but I went ahead and fixed it. But now we need to invert this selection because we want the foreground. So click this icon on the TK8 combo or CX panel. Now don't get fooled here because a lot of people get fooled here. They click this icon, which inverts pixel layers, but this icon inverts selections. So make sure you get this one. So click it, and now you see the foreground selected. Now we can hide the marching ants by clicking this icon right here. And that just hides the selection. You can see by the selection indicator, we still have a selection. And next, make sure you have this layer selected. See, it's selected right here. Click this red square, which is your fill dialog, and make sure contents are set for black. This is a drop-down menu. Click it. Make sure black is here, not white or 50% gray or content aware. You want black. And just click OK, and it'll fill that in and protect that wave. Now, we can take a look at the mask. Click on the double arrow icon, and there's the mask. And look how it's protecting the breaking wave and the trees over here. So this is a really effective way of protecting your foreground areas whenever you're using a gradient to close off the top of your images. To go back to see the image view, click the double arrows again, and we're back to the image. Let's see how far we've come so far. I'm going to click my before after action. Here's the before, and here is the after. So we're moving in a nice direction. The next thing I think I'd like to do is I'd like to bring out some texture in these rocks in the foreground here, and I'll do a little bit of dodging and burning to do that. Now, I don't have any real super highlights here to dodge, so I think a zone mask would be the most effective way to do some dodging. And I want to select this tone right in here. Now, right now, you notice I have a selection, and I am on my background layer, so I want to click on my top layer. Now, don't worry about this selection because as soon as I click on this zone mask, that selection will go away after I pick a tone in here. You'll see that selection will go away. But I want to go with some of these lighter tones in here, so I'm going to click right here and click OK. And now you see my selection is gone. And now I really want to tighten up this mask. So I'm going to take this slider and really drag it to the left a good bit. See, I'm really just targeting these tones in here. And I think that's good, but let's lighten it up as well. I'll be dodging, so I want to output this to a dodge tool. Now this dodge tool has two sides to it, you see? The left side is a 50% gray layer. So I'm going to click on the left side here, and you'll notice it's in the overlay blend mode. And there's my gray layer. TK sets me up with a white brush. And I'm going to change my opacity to 10%. Right now it's on 5%. I'm going to type my 1 key. That'll get me to 10%. And I have a nice soft edge large brush here. And what I'll do is just start painting. You know, just like this, I can paint all over this area here. That's 10%. Now I'm going to lift my brush and paint it again. I want to build this up slowly, and 10% enables me to do that because I don't want to go too far here. I think I'll get this another time. I lifted my brush again. I think I'll get up in here and here. And let's get this over like so. Let's take a look here. Here's my before and here's my after. Just targeting those light areas. Now I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller and hit up in here a couple times, lifting it each time I paint. And down here like that. Okay, and I'll get this and this right here. Okay, so let's take a look. Here's the before and here's the after. But I don't want to leave this side out, so I'm going to go ahead and paint over here. I'm going to stay away from this misty looking rock. And paint this down in here. lift my brush, and I'll paint again over all this area. And it's nice to have that zone mask targeting just the areas that I want. So I can be pretty, willy-nilly along here. I don't have to worry too much. Okay, so there we go. Let's take a look. Here's the before, and here's the after. Now, I think I overdid this area too much, but I'll show you how we can take care of this. Grab a gray brush, and that will do the opposite effect of dodging. It'll kind of erase it. Actually, it does erase it. I'm going to use 10% and just come over here once, over this area. I lifted the brush. I'm going to hit it again and hit it again, hit it again. Every time I paint, I've lifted my brush. Let's take a look. Here's the before, and here's the after. That just toned that down. But that's what that gray brush is all about, and that's why I like using the 50% gray layer. Now, if you like the overall result, but you think it's too light, you always have this opacity here, right? I always like to take this the whole way off and then just start to drag it up slowly and stop at a point that I really like. And let's try 86%. Here's the before and here's the after, and I like that. You always have that opacity that you can use to fine-tune your overall adjustment. And now let's burn down these shadows a little bit. This time, instead of a zone mask, I'm going to use a luminosity mask. So I'm going to click on the luminosity mask, and let's see if we can target the darkest shadows. Let's try 1, darks 1, darks 2, getting closer, darks 3, really starting to isolate the dark tones. Let's try darks 4. Now darks 4 is really getting it really nice. But don't forget, we have these color channels here, and I like to go through these. Right now we're in RGB, but let's try red, green, blue, cyan, magenta, and yellow. And I think I like blue. It really makes those shadows get a lot lighter, which will take a stronger effect when I go to burn them down. And we can fine-tune some more with the levels adjustment. So let's click on the levels adjustment. I'm going to drag this highlight slider to the left to lighten those areas up even more. Maybe right about there looks really good. And now I want to burn, so we have the burn tool here. Now again, it has two sides, just like the dodge tool. The right side gives you just the blank pixel layer, but the left side gives you that 50% gray. So we're going to click on that, and we're going to output this mask as a selection. Just like it did with the dodge tool, it outputted it as a selection. But there's my selection indicator. And now I'm going to use 100% opacity. So I'm going to type my 0 key. That's the shortcut for 100%. And now I'll change my brush size, make it a little larger, and just start to paint right over here and just burn that down. I haven't lifted my brush at all. That's one pass. Let me come to this side and burn this side. Right over here. I'm going to stay away from up here. That's not that interesting to me, but the rock really is. Okay, I'm going to paint this one more time over here with 100%. Let's take a look. Here's the before, and here's the after. If you option or alt click on this layer, you can see what your mask looks like. Or not your mask, what your paint job looks like, I should say, on that 50% gray layer. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Now we have the opacity. We can take it the whole way off and then build it up slowly. And remember, if you got an area too strong, you could use your 50% gray paint and fix that. Here's the before and here's the after. But look at all that nice texture. It might be a little too strong. I'm going to pull this back a little bit more. Here's the before and here's the after. Now what I want to do is put these two layers in a group. So right now the burn layer is selected. Hold your Shift key down and click on the dodge layer, and then come to this icon right here. It has two parts. If you click on the left side, it'll put it in a group with a black hide all mask. If you click on the right side, it'll put it in a group with a white reveal all mask. But I have an issue here. I have a selection, so don't get fooled here. If you have a selection and you click on the right side to put it in a white reveal all mask, it'll add that selection as a mask, and you don't want that. So you need to deselect that selection. So click this icon right here, and then click on the right side of this group icon, and there's my white mask. And then you could rename it like Dodge and Burn. I'll just do it like DB for Dodge and Burn, and we'll call it Rocks, so we know that's for the rocks. It's always good to label these layers here. Let's turn the whole Dodge and Burn layer off. Here's the before and here's the after. But now you have the opacity slider here. So if you felt your overall dodging and burning is too strong, you can pull back on that a little bit and not have it quite so intense. So here's the before and here's the after. So you get a lot of control here. And look at all that gorgeous texture we brought out in these rocks. Again, here's the before and the after. Really nice texture. Now that I've dodged and burned the rocks, let's dodge and burn the water to really bring out some nice turbulence in there. I'm going to start with dodging, so I'm going to get a luminosity mask again because it's going to really target these highlights. But let's isolate the lightest lights. So let's go. There's lights 1. Here's lights 2. That's getting good separation. Here's lights 3. And I think I like lights 3. It's really protecting the shadow areas. But let's try our different channels. Here's red. Here's green. Here's blue. Not bad. Here's cyan. And here's magenta. And I think I like magenta. Here's yellow. So here's magenta. Here's blue. I think I'm going to go with magenta. No, I'm not going to lighten anything up here with the levels. I think I'm going to be okay. I don't want this effect to be too strong. And I think I can get away with dodging this without even using a brush here. I can just output this to like a curves adjustment layer with the screen blend mode. But some of the sky has a little bit of light cast to it around these trees and everything here. I could just take the whole thing the way it was, but I'm going to go ahead and mask the mask. I'm going to grab my lasso tool. I'm going to type L, and I'm going to just lasso around this area like so. Come down around in here and out, and just grab this whole area just like that. Now, I missed that little area here. Hold my shift key down and just grab around there. And over here, too, I missed this. Not that it would matter much. Now, we're going to do mask the mask. So click on this icon to do mask the mask. Now, I normally just go ahead and click cancel here, but I think I want to use some feathering here. And I think this radius that's calculated here will be fine. So let me click OK. And that does a really nice job just to select that area. Now, all I need to do, I'm going to output this to a curves adjustment layer. I'm going to put it in the screen blend mode, and it should lighten all those highlights. You see that? Here's the before, and here is the after. So it really lightens up those highlights. And we didn't even have to do any brushing. And now I want to burn the shadows in the water. I'm going to do something a little bit differently this time. I'm not going to use a burn tool. I'm going to use a curves adjustment layer. I'm going to put a black mask to hide what I'm going to do to it. I'm going to put it in the multiply blend mode to darken. And then I'm going to grab a luminosity mask to help me. So I'm going to click on the luminosity mask icon, and let's try Darks 1. And yeah, I think Darks 1 gets it. I don't want to be too strong here, but you can see the light areas in here. And now all I want to do is output this to a black mask with a white brush painting through a selection. So click this icon. And now I'm going to try a brush opacity of about 50%. And with a decent sized brush, just start painting like this, the shadow areas. In the water only. Just like that. I have not lifted my brush, by the way. Okay. And I think I've got it. Let's take a look. Here is the before, and here is the after. Now, again, if it's too strong, we can take this opacity and pull it back. But I think I like it. Well, I think I may cut it back a little bit to maybe around 77%. Here's the before, and here is the after. Before and after. And I think I like it. Now, I want to put these two layers in a group. So I'm going to hold my shift key down, and now I'm going to click on the layer right underneath it, which was the dodge layer. We're going to put it in a group with a white mask, but remember, we have a selection here. So we need to deselect that selection. Let's put it in a group with a white mask, just like that. And now we have the overall before and after when we shut this layer off of the water. There's the before and there's the after. But see how it builds that turbulence up? Really nice, and I like it. And remember, we can take the opacity of this group, take it off, and just add as much in as we want. And I may do it right around 79%. Here's the before and here's the after, just so we don't overdo it. We're almost done. Don't go away yet because I'm going to do some frequency separation. You see this brown in the water here, and here I'll fix it with frequency separation. Before I do that, I'm going to come to TK Actions, click on Vignette, add a basic vignette. Go ahead and just click OK. And I'll just lower this opacity to like around 20%. I don't want it to be strong. Here's the before and here's the after. I'm not going to do any blend if I don't need to. Again, the before and the after. And now some frequency separation. I'll really zoom in here. I'm going to click the plus button a few times to really zoom in. And just take a look at this brown in the water right here. Okay, let's come to TK Actions and click on frequency separation. And I just accept everything the way it is here. 10 pixel radius on Gaussian blur. Click OK. What I want to do is come to color blur, click on this layer, and add a blank pixel layer above it. Click on this icon, adds a blank pixel layer. Now I'm going to use a brush. I'm just going to grab my white brush tool here. And if you hold your Alt on a PC or Option key down on a Mac, you can sample like a color. So you don't want to sample the brown, obviously. You're trying to get rid of it. So I'm going to sample one of these colors in here, right here. Click, and I sampled that color. And I'm going to use 50% opacity, make my brush a little smaller, and paint over this. Like that. Paint again, lifting my brush a couple times, painting here and here and here, over in here. And we can resample the color that's in this area here, just so we get it right. And this foamy area down here, I'm going to use that color. Okay, it really helps when you resample the colors. And up in here, I'm going to sample like right here and paint over this. And just like that, we can just paint away that ugly brown in the water. And right here, we'll paint over some of this stuff right in here. I'm doing this really fast, but you get the idea. Just paint it away, just like that. Right like that. Here's the before. I'm clicking on the eyeball on the group layer. Here's the before, and here's the after. And now let's go over to this other area over here and do the same thing. I'm going to hold my Alt or Option key down and sample this color right in here and just paint over this a few times. I am lifting my brush every time you see me stroke through here. I'm going to grab this color and just paint on that like that. And maybe right here, make the brush a little bit smaller and paint on that. Just got to make it look believable, but we get rid of that ugly brown, and that's a good thing. I think we're going to be good. Yeah, I like this color better in here. Okay, so here's the before, and here's the after. Let me click this icon just to go and fit the screen, and I'll just hit the minus to make it a little bit smaller. Now, here's the frequency separation overall, before, and here's the after. And that, my friends, is basically it. Our overall image looked like this. Here's the before. And now here is the after. Well, there it is, everyone. And thank you, Ray, for letting us use your image. Don't forget to download the image and get those PDF notes. You'll find them in the description right below this video. This was Shore Acres Park in Oregon. If you enjoyed this tutorial today, please give it a like and share it with your friends. And if you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe and click that bell notification icon. And then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll get a notification. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly, and I'll see you all right here next time. But until then, happy editing!